Uh, we should start in about a minute, okay?
Sounds good. Thanks, Rob.
Okay, let's get going. Sorry to keep you waiting. I needed to go get something to drink, so I can keep talking. My name is Robert SanGeorge. I am, generally speaking, the Graduate Career Advisor for the School of Public Affairs. For the purpose of today, I'm advising anybody from any school who is an international student. And as you can see, we're going to talk about resumes, we will talk about cover letters, and we'll talk about job and internship searching, but focus particularly on the issues and the challenges that international students face, okay? Those of you who are online, and there are a bunch of you, actually the chat, I don't have the chat open, just a second. And that is host and panelists. That's probably not good enough. Okay, I just changed it so the chat is open to everyone. And there's also a Q&A. And just a second while I make sure this is all the way it's supposed to be. Well, as far as I know, that's open too. So you should be able to ask me questions definitely in the chat and maybe in the Q&A if you're online. If you're not online, I can see you sort of in a really small part of my screen. And I would suggest you raise your hand. And you can interrupt me at any time. If you ask me a question about something that I'm going to talk about on a future slide, I'll ask you to be patient and wait till we get to that. So let's get going. First of all, let's talk about how you can best market your qualifications, your experience, your skills, your ability in the USA. What am I talking about? Your languages. Most of you, just about all of you, speak your native language, if it's not English, as well as English, and possibly other languages. Work that you may have done as an internship or a volunteer or in a job. And also, importantly, relevant coursework, especially that is relevant to the kinds of jobs or internships that you want to apply to, okay? Now, how do you search for jobs and also internships, but especially jobs? Personal networking, what does that mean? It means with fellow students who may already be at a more advanced place in their career than you are. It means faculty. It means just people you meet, and also putting yourself in a position to meet people. So for example, there are policy institutes, numerous policy institutes in the DC area, probably 100 or more. And there are policy institutes that are relevant to just about any career path you are going to follow. And they all do events, typically workshops, panel discussions, and more of those events are in person, although not all of them are. And if there are events that don't conflict with your class schedule or other things, it would be a good idea to, most of them are going to be downtown. It would be a good idea to get on the metro and to go to some of these events, show up early, 20 or 30 minutes early, try to talk to people who are there, and including particularly the speaker or the speakers, and also stay a little bit late for as long as another 10 or 15 or 20 minutes to continue talking with people who are there and making contacts, okay? You also want to make use of Career Center resources and also resources from the International Student Services Office with regard to, the legal issues that you face in terms of internships and jobs in the United States. And as I mentioned, faculty, of course. So let's talk about resumes first, because that's the most important thing that you have to do well on to put yourself forward in the best way possible. And I'm going to be very basic here. Some of you may already be very familiar with this, but I want to be very basic in case you don't have much background in what resumes should look like in the United States, okay? At the top, there's going to be contact information, your name, your email address, and your phone number. But in addition, it's important to have a street address. Now, if you want to protect your privacy and you don't want to list your street address at the top of your resume, then I would suggest you list AU's address, which is 4400 Massachusetts Avenue, Washington, D.C. 4400 Mass Ave, Washington, D.C. And don't worry, no one is ever going to send you snail mail. They are going to text you, they are going to email you, they are going to maybe even make a phone call, okay? Then you need to, when I say academic training, that it's not just university degrees. You may have certificates in certain things that you want to mention, and you need to mention the degree you're working at. American University should be at the top because that's your current degree program. And your date of expected graduation, okay? Employers don't care very much about the years you attended AU. They care about the year the month and the year you're graduating. So if you're graduating this May 2023. And dates, by the way, if you can see the little example I have on the side, and I'll show a better example on another slide. Dates should go on the right side of the resume. And you'll start out with the name of the university, the city that it's in this case, Washington, D.C., obviously for AU, and the degree program you're working on, and then certain things about your degree. Have you won an award? Have you been awarded some sort of scholarship? Those sorts of things, okay? And then your undergraduate degree should be below that from wherever you received that degree. Now, if it was in your home country and your home country is not an English-speaking country, and the title of your university is in Spanish or something like that, you need to translate it, okay? Don't assume that any American to whom you send a resume is going to be able to read that, because as you know, foreign languages are not a big thing with a lot of Americans. You'll want to, in this example I have, he doesn't list that, but you'll want to have a section that is probably called skills or professional skills. And you'll want to list bullet pointed, and I'm talking about round black bullet points only, keep it simple. You'll want to list languages that you speak and at what level, okay? basic, intermediate, advanced, or fluent. Software that you can handle, and I'm really not talking about Microsoft Word or PowerPoint or Google Docs, talking about, for example, Microsoft Excel, because not everyone can handle Excel very well. If you know how to manipulate data in Excel using filters and pivot tables in Excel, then you should list that and say that you are a strong Excel user in a bullet point, okay? And if you've got other software, especially data analytics software, SPSS, Stata, R, Python, also other kinds of specialized software like Adobe Photoshop, for example, or video editing software, depending on what you're studying and what's relevant for you, you'll want to list that software too. Then we get to work experience, in which you will list, don't just restrict it to jobs, don't just restrict it to internships, and don't divide it up like job experience, internship experience, volunteer experience. Put it all together pretty much, okay? And the way it's done is the most recent things are on top, and then you work your way back in history. So it's reverse chronological order, okay? I mentioned awards and honors. That generally, of course, should be at the top in the education section. And when you're describing jobs or internships or volunteerships that you've had, the bullet points where you describe what you did should emphasize outcomes and accomplishments, if at all possible. And if some of them are quantifiable, such as, you know, for this internship, submitted a 30-page research paper on a certain subject, which was eventually published online. Okay, so you want to say 30 pages and not just a research paper. That's how you would quantify some of these things. All right. Now you'll notice on this resume, if you can read it very well, the person actually separated out his volunteer experience. You can do that if you want, although a lot of times I recommend not doing that. And is anybody raising their hand? I can't see it very well. Nobody has made a comment. Emily, is anybody raising their hand?
Nope, no one's raising their hands, Rob.
Okay, all right, so I'll keep going. Now, how do you get help with your resume? You should schedule an appointment. Well, you can either drop into the Career Center to see someone who's known as a peer advisor, who will be sitting in the Career Center reception area, not at the desk, but a little bit to your right as you walk in. They can give you a basic resume review. I actually don't know. Emily, do you know what hours peer advisors are available?
They are variable hours listed online, so not off the top of my head, I do not.
Oh, they're mostly available online, not in person?
No, they're about 2-hour chunks. I'm happy to find that information. I'll pop it in the chat, okay?
Okay. I just realized I didn't really know because I don't deal with the peer advisors very much. These are older students who have been trained by us in reviewing resumes and reviewing cover letters, okay? In addition, of course, you can make an appointment with a career advisor. That doesn't always mean me, and actually, you can only get an appointment with me if you are an SPA student, okay? So if you're an SIS student, they have a career center. If you're a COGOD student, they have their own career center. If you are in School of Communication or College of Arts and Sciences, School of Education, I think I forgot one, but maybe not. They are part of the main career center, but there are other advisors who sit near where I sit when I'm in the office. I'm not in the office today, but they're specific career advisors there. Okay, if you know how to make an appointment and handshake, you should do it that way. And the reason is you will be able to see all the times when your specific advisor is available to see you. If you call the Career Center, phone them at that phone number, 202-885-1804, they will be suggesting times to you. They'll say, how about 2 o'clock on Thursday? How about 10 a.m. on Monday? You know, you won't see their whole schedule, but if you don't know how to use handshake to make an appointment, then phone the Career Center during business hours. That's 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Okay, Eastern time. If you're an online student and you're not in on the East Coast. And you'll also want to go to the AU Career Center website. That's american.edu/career center. American.edu/career center. And there's a place where you can review sample resumes to see what they should look like. Okay. Now, we're moving on to cover letters, and I still don't see any hands up in the room, and I don't see any comments in the chat or the Q&A, so we'll just keep going. What is a cover letter? First thing to understand is cover letters are secondary. The most important thing you will send to an employer is your resume, by far. Some of them also want to see cover letters. It's a document. It's less than a page long. In fact, it's really 2/3 of a page or 3/4 of a page. And what do you explain in this letter? First of all, you tell them what is the job or internship that you are seeking. And then why are you qualified? And you would say something like, I believe my qualifications for this research internship are strong because of my data analytics skills or because of 3 years experience doing research in internships and jobs in my home country, or that sort of thing. Why are you qualified? You want to say that in a paragraph. And why do you want to work for that employer? If it's a well-known employer, you probably want to say something about how you have admired them for some period of time. If they're not well-known, don't say them how much you admire them, because they won't believe it. All right. And also, why are you enthusiastic about this? And you want to say that in 2 ways. It's really important not to just say, I want to work for you in this internship because of what I will learn. In other words, what is in it for you, but also what you can contribute. Employers are looking, because I believe I could be a valuable addition to your office in the research and analysis I can do, or whatever kind of internship it is. All right. So it should be a 2-way street, not a 1-way street. In other words, here's what I can do for you, and here's what I hope to get out of the internship. And with a job, it's even more. Really, employers pretty much only care in jobs about what you are going to do for them. And they don't care very much, most of them, about what they're going to do for you, other than pay you, obviously. And by the way, Emily has dropped into the chat. Peer advisors in the main Career Center on the 5th floor of Butler Pavilion are available 2 to 3 p.m. in person or virtual, and 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Virtual only, and those are all Eastern times. Okay, so that's peer advisors, and thank you for sending that. Let's move on. I don't see any questions. So, some additional things about cover letters. Do not fall to the temptation to just restate your resume. Too many people put the page where they're writing their cover letter on one side of their computer screen and their resume on the other side. And then they go through their resume one by one and they start explaining everything that's on their resume. And then the cover letter is a 1.5 pages long. That is a bad idea. No cover letter should be more than about 4 or 5 paragraphs that are no more than 5 or 6 lines each, not 5 or 6 sentences each, 5 or 6 lines. That means a cover letter should not go more than about 3/4 of the way down a page, and maybe even shorter. So you are highlighting your most important skills and experience for the internship posting or the job posting that you are responding to. You are highlighting, you're not stating everything, okay? And as I say here on the slide, it's 3 to 5 paragraphs. Check it really carefully for typos and grammatical errors, and make sure that your spell check in Google Docs or in Word is set for American English, okay? But you can't always rely on that. Why? Because you might accidentally spell an English word into another English word, like a present tense word into past tense. So you still have to check, because spell check is not perfect, okay? You may want to have someone else look at it. I don't necessarily mean a career advisor, but just a friend, okay? And also, in terms of making sure that you're writing in a way that is fairly, natural English, read the letter aloud to yourself. So you will notice if you've left a word out, or you need to revise your grammar, or does it sound awkward, or does it sound normal? Okay, that's an important thing to do with regard to cover letters once you've got it all written, your first draft.
And we have a question in person, Rob.
Okay, go ahead.
Just what font, line of space and margin where did you use for cover letter?
What font, space lining and margins should be used for a cover letter?
The margins should be the regular margins that you get when you open the document. Don't change them. Okay. The font, I recommend in Word, I recommend Calibri. A lot of people use New Times Roman because for about probably 15 years, it was the default font for Word. I don't recommend that font because New Times Roman was originally created to look good in print, not necessarily on a computer screen. Calibri looks a lot better on a computer screen. C-A-L-I-B-R-I, I think. C-A-L-I-B-R-I, Calibri. The font size should be no smaller than 10 and preferably 11 or 12, and no larger than 11 or 12. And don't mess around and make some words bigger than others, except for your name at the top. Your name should be in bold, and it should be probably size 14 font, something like that. The entire rest of the resume should be in the same size font, 11 or 12, and the entire resume needs to be in the same font, not fooling around with different fonts for different words and different paragraphs. Don't use italics very much, if at all, which of course I'm violating that rule on this slide, but because it can be harder to read, okay? So you may want to put your title of a job or an internship in italics. That's about the only thing I would put in italics in a resume. Any follow-up question to that from the person who asked that question? I can't see well enough to see what's happening in the room.
And what line spacing? Single space, 1.5?
Oh,
2?
yeah. I strongly recommend, Word gives you an option of 1.2. Okay, do not double space. Bad idea to double space, or even wider than that. Single spacing is sometimes it's too crammed. So there's an option in Word for 1.2. That's what I would use. I don't use Google Docs. I hope they have something like that. If they don't have a 1.2 in Google Docs, then I would go with single spacing. Okay. So that's that. Now, first paragraph. Why are you writing this cover letter? Okay. And so, here's the first, an example of what a first paragraph might look like. As a graduate student in the American University School of Public Affairs, I am focusing on data analytics and public policy. After seeing your research assistant position posted in AU Career Web, actually, there is no more Career Web, it's Handshake. I should have changed that. In Handshake, I am eager to apply my research and analytical skills to support your team. Okay, so that's why you are writing. Okay. And you should tell them where you learned of the position, and it's going to be Handshake or LinkedIn Jobs or Indeed.com, etc. Okay. And then you want to talk just a little bit about skills. So you see this person says, I'm focusing on data analytics and public policy, and I'm eager to apply my research and analytical skills to support your team. And then why do you want to work for them? I am interested in working with your organization because it is dedicated to data-driven policy Obviously, that's a certain kind of employer. You're not going to use this paragraph for every employer, but that's an idea of what a first paragraph would look like. And notice that it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's 6.5 lines. It shouldn't be more than 7 lines long. No paragraph should be more than 7 lines long. And each paragraph between paragraphs, there should always be a full line space, okay? So that it's spaced out better and it makes it easier and it encourages the employer to keep reading down, okay? Now, paragraph 2, you would say something like, I mean, again, this is based upon a hypothetical person that I'm inventing here, all right? Second paragraph would say something like, through my coursework in data analytics and public policy, I've developed skills in, and then he lists, literature search, quantitative, qualitative analysis, policy discussion, all critical to working in your company's field, right? So he's making the case for himself with this employer. And then there would be a final paragraph. In this case, he only really would need 3 paragraphs. Enclosed in my resume and writing samples, but don't give them writing samples unless they ask for it. All right, do not do that unless they ask for it. I will contact you to follow up on my application, and I look forward to discussing my qualifications for this position. This last sentence about, if you need to contact me, here's my phone number and my email. Probably you shouldn't do that. If you've put your email address and your contact information at the top of the letter, then don't put it at the bottom of the letter. Okay. Plus, as you know, your contact information will be at the top of your resume also. All right. So that's cover letters. It's perhaps 3 paragraphs, probably no shorter than 3 paragraphs. Could be a bit longer if you've got more qualifications that you want to talk about, but only maybe 1 additional paragraph. The kind of informal rule is shorter cover letters are more likely to be read. So the shorter the cover letter, more likely people are going to read it. Longer cover letters are less likely people are going to read it. That's something to keep in mind all the time. Okay. I don't see any online questions. Any people in the room? I don't think I see.
Nope, nothing in person.
Okay, so we'll keep going. Job searching online. Okay. And this also goes for internship searching. Okay. These are probably your best sources nearly all the time. And they're more or less listed in order of importance. LinkedIn is the best mainstream job search engine. And now you're probably familiar with LinkedIn because you posted your profile on LinkedIn. And by the way, you want to make sure that profile is up to date and perfect in terms of its English. Okay. But you will notice at the top of the LinkedIn page, when you're logged in, there will be a little icon of a briefcase and it'll say jobs. And you click on that. Now you are into LinkedIn jobs. And that's where you can search for jobs. And by the way, it's also internships. It's not just jobs. And there are filters that you will see. And one of the filters will ask you whether you're looking for a job or an internship. And you click on whichever that is. It will also ask you what is the date range that you're looking for. Date posted, it will say. You click on that and don't look for anything more than 2 weeks old because they are probably either filled or they're already interviewing candidates. Okay. Now, Indeed.com is the second best job search engine, mainstream job search engine. And it's good. It's quite good. It's not quite as good as LinkedIn, but it's very good. And by the way, the filters on LinkedIn are identical to LinkedIn. It's just that the colors of their buttons are different. Okay. So I would use both of them. And you will not get 100% overlap in the job or internships that you see. And of course, the one thing I haven't mentioned is you have to be good about using proper search terms. Now, search terms can fall into 2 categories. One is the job title or titles that you are searching for. Research assistant, research associate, project assistant, project associate, program assistant, program associate, policy analyst, that usually is more than entry level. The other titles I gave you are for entry level jobs that usually don't require a lot of experience. Policy analyst might require 3 or 4 or 5 years experience, maybe. Those are the functional titles, okay? Then you've got subject matter. Are you looking in criminal justice or data science or political science or chemistry or accounting, etc. All right, or certain types of communication, video production, or you get the idea. I don't think I have to give more examples than that. So you need to figure out what are the subject terms that you're going to use to search LinkedIn and Indeed. The thing is, LinkedIn and Indeed have tens of thousands of jobs and internships posted at any one time. And by the way, you need to specify where you're looking. There will be a different search field. If you're looking in the Washington, D.C. area, just type in Washington, D.C. If you're looking in another city, you will need to do a separate search. So if you're looking in both Washington and New York, you need to do a separate search with separate search terms for New York, okay, for example. Idealist.org is a job search and internship search engine, but mostly just a job search engine for NGO nonprofit jobs, only NGO jobs, all right? So if you're thinking about the NGO sector for a job, that's a good place to look for jobs. It's not actually very good for internships. It's quite good for jobs, however. And Handshake is a lot of things. You know, you can make a reservation, I mean, an appointment with a career advisor on Handshake. You can search for career events on Handshake, but Handshake is also a job and internship board, and you can search for stuff there. If you're not familiar with how to use it, what I would suggest is that you phone the Career Center and find out when a career advisor is available online or in person who can walk you through Handshake and how to search for jobs or internships on Handshake, okay? So those are your best sources, really. I don't see any online questions, and I don't see anybody raising their hand, I don't think.
Nope.
Nope, so let's keep going. What is best for you? A lot of international students that I meet with mention they would like to work for the United Nations or the World Bank, for example, because if you get hired, for example, by the World Bank in DC, you don't need an H-1B visa. The World Bank has its own separate status in the US. They are an international employer, and you're just automatically able to work there. The United Nations is in the US is in New York. The UN offices in DC are very small. There are very few of them, and typically only 3 or 4 people work there, and mostly they employ Americans. Why? Because the offices of the UN in DC exist to lobby the US Congress for money and the White House. And I used to work for the UN in Geneva, Switzerland. And there was a period of time when I was with the UN for about 3 years when I was flying back and forth from Geneva to Washington about once a month, sometimes twice a month, to lobby the US government for money. They wanted me as an American to be the one who was talking to the Americans. That's not always the case. You didn't have to have an American. Just needed to have somebody who spoke English well. And so the UN in DC is not a good bet for a job. They're not at all a good bet for a job. UN in New York is different. That's, you know, there's lots of jobs in New York with the United Nations. But all that said, it's hard to get a job with the United Nations and with the World Bank. It's very competitive. Your English has to be very good. Most of you will speak another language. If you're looking for a job with the UN in Europe, it can sometimes be difficult if you don't speak French also in addition to English. Then there are things called regional development banks. These are not part of the World Bank, although they work with them, and they operate in a very similar way. There is one regional development bank headquartered in DC. It's called the Inter-American Development Bank, and it covers Latin America. And as you might imagine, you have to be able to speak Spanish to work there, and English, but they want Spanish for sure. Then there are other regional development banks. There is one in Asia. It's headquartered in Manila called the Asia Development Bank. There is one in London, mainly for the Caucasus and certain parts of Eastern Europe. It's called the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. There is one for Africa called the Africa Development Bank, and they've moved their headquarters a couple of times due to political upheaval. The last time I looked, they were headquartered in Tunis, Tunisia. Okay, so Africa Development Bank, Asia Development Bank, European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and the Inter-American Development Bank. Those are the regional development banks. To get a job there, the nation of which you are a citizen must be a member of that bank. So, you know, if you're from Asia, it's almost certain that your country will be a member of the Asia Development Bank. If you're from Africa, all the African countries are members of the Africa Development Bank, etc. Okay. And if you're from Latin America or Central Latin America or the Caribbean, your nation will almost certainly be a member of the Inter-American Development Bank. Okay. They can be great places to work, and they pay well, by the way. But again, it's quite competitive. Okay. One thing I do want to mention, there are two programs the World Bank offers for younger people to get a job. One is called the YPP, Young Professionals Program. And I'm completely forgetting the name of the other one off the top of my, oh, there it is. It's at the bottom of the screen. The Young Professionals Program and the Junior Professionals Program. And I know they sound very similar, but they are different. One of them, I think, is for 2 years and the other is for 4 years. And one of them, if you've done a good job, you can transfer into a permanent position. The other one says, once you've worked for them for 2 years or 4 years, you have to leave and you could come back in 5 years or something like that. But they are both really good programs. And if you're interested in the World Bank, I would go to I would look for the web pages for Young Professionals Program, Junior Professionals Program, to make sure you're not missing out on deadlines. I don't know what the deadlines are for applying to those programs. It's typically only once a year. So you want to be sure you don't miss a deadline. You know, that if you don't look until May and maybe the deadline was April, I don't know, and then you missed it and you have to wait a whole year. And for the Young Professionals programs, you have to be, I believe, 39 years old or younger. Okay. There is also something called UN Volunteers. As long as you're from a country that is a member of the UN, and just about every place is, you can apply for UN Volunteers. You have to be 25 years old. They don't take anyone who's younger than that. And they do pay, but not well, because it's a volunteer program. And what you do is you identify maybe 3 or 4 UN agencies that you would like to work for. And then based on your resume and probably a Zoom interview, they decide whether they're going to hire you. Okay. It is a long process, though. I mean, when you are 24 years old, you can apply, and it sometimes takes 12 months for an application to move through the system for UN volunteers. When I worked for the UN in Geneva, I ran into a bunch of people who had been UN volunteers, and then they were able to transition into permanent position. A UN volunteer is a 12-month position, renewable for another 12 months. And everyone that I met who was in a permanent position in the UN had worked as a volunteer for 2 years. They renewed, and then they were able to move into other positions. The positions can be all over the world. They can be in the field in Africa or Asia, or they can be at headquarters. They could be in Geneva. They could be in Paris. They could be in New York. They could be, the UN has a very big regional office in Bangkok, Thailand, another one in Tokyo. And so, excuse me. And so that's how that works. If you have questions about that, I'm happy to take them, but I don't Does somebody have their hand up there, maybe? I didn't see.
Yes, we do, yeah.
So you mentioned the working at the UN in Europe. Do you have any advice on how to start?
Well, yeah, it's not the easiest thing in the world to get a job at the UN. I know because I worked there. First of all, it's hard to get a job directly with the UN. It's very difficult because you have 1,000 people applying for an opening. And the best way to if you want to pursue a career with the UN, the best way to do that is to start out working for an NGO that is a contractor to the agency where you want to work. So what does that mean? Let's say that you want to work for the UN Refugee Organization, which is based in Geneva. The best way to get a job there is to go to work for a refugee relief NGO. Some of them are in the US, mostly in New York and DC. And then there's a lot of others in other places. But you want to make sure that that NGO is a contractor to the UN. It's easy to figure that out. For the UN Refugee Agency or any UN agency, you go to their website and you click on About, okay? And then you look for a page that is usually called Our Partners or Our Coalition. And you click on that, and there will be a very long list for any UN agency, a very long list of NGOs, maybe 500. Now, most of those NGOs will be very small, and they only operate in one country, and you have to be a citizen of that country. You know, the Kenyan Women's Empowerment Organization. I made that name up, but you get an idea. But in that long list, there will be big northern NGOs. Let me talk about, I worked for an agency called when I was at the UN, the International Program to Combat Child Labor. We worked very closely with contractors from Save the Children in the United States, an organization based in the UK called Anti-Slavery International, another organization that was based in New Delhi, India, called the Global March Against Child Labor. And we worked with, and those are the big ones. There were some smaller ones we worked with too. So if you wanted to work for the UN Program to Combat Child Labor, which by the way is a small agency, so it's better to go for a bigger agency, you would want to try to get a job with one of those NGOs. If you wanted to work for the refugee agency, you know, you'd want to work for the International Rescue Committee, for example, which is the biggest refugee relief organization in the world. Or you'd want to work for Refugees International, which is headquartered in DC, or the Migration Policy Institute, which is also headquartered in DC. So you get the idea. If you wanted, the biggest UN agency is the UN Development Program. It's economic development, and they have offices in 138 countries, believe it or not. And their biggest contractor is Oxfam International, which you may have heard of. Oxfam their international headquarters is in London, but they have a big office in the US. They have other offices in other countries. And so if I wanted to work for UN Development Program, one of the places I would look would be Oxfam International, but I would go to their website and find out who are some other big NGOs that are contractors there. Now, why do I emphasize contractors? Because you want to get yourself into a position where you are hopefully working on a contract for that agency, and then they get to know you and you get to know them. When I was in the UN Child Labor Program, if we needed to hire someone in, say, Tanzania, the first question we asked was, who is working for the International Rescue Committee or Anti-Slavery International or UNICEF, which is the big UN children's agency? Who's working for those places in Tanzania? And we would hire someone who was there already. So a lot of times it means working for an NGO and going into the field, although you could be at headquarters. You don't have to be in the field. And that's that. I mean, you just have to apply to a lot of NGOs who are contractors to a particular UN agency and try to get a job with one of those. And then it will take 2 to 4 years to get to a point where you've accumulated enough experience and you've gotten to know people at the UN agency and you can move into working for them. Okay. So that's, if you have, tell me if you have any further questions. That's really the best way to get to the UN. They do, by the way, they offer tests. And what happens is the UN will announce, okay, we're going to offer a test on certain dates upcoming to work for certain agencies. And when you total it up, typically it's for no more than about 60 jobs, 50 or 60 jobs. And typically 10,000 people will apply worldwide. All right. And probably 5,000 of them are pretty well qualified. And those are the people who apply. They don't get to take the test. They have applied to take the test. Then the UN says, okay, out of those 10,000 people, about 1,000 can take the test. So already they've eliminated 90% of the applicants. And then you take the test and you're one of 1,000 people and they're only going to hire 60 people. All right. So it's really hard. If you're going to take that test, go ahead and take the test, but assume that it's not going to work. And if it does work, you'll be very happily surprised. Okay. So that's how to do it with a test. But the other really good way to do it is as I say, working for an NGO. One other way to do it, if you are from a country where the UN operates field programs, okay? A lot of times, both NGOs and the agency itself will hire local people, meaning not local to a town, but local to the country, to work for them. They won't pay as well. It's not like having a full job with, say, the UN. You're what they call a local hire, and they will pay you at local wage rates, which means usually a lot less money. But that's the way you get experience and get to know people and then move up from there. So you may also want to inquire, depending on where you're from, as to whether there are UN local hire jobs, that's what they're called, local hire, in the country where you're from, and see what happens. Those are all the ways of getting into the UN, okay? Any further question on that subject or any other subject? I've still got some more things to go through. I don't see any hands up.
No hands up.
Okay, so let's keep going. LinkedIn. It's a way that a lot of recruiters search for candidates, but you should not think, well, I put up my profile on LinkedIn, so now I'll wait for the recruiters to phone me. That is not an effective job search strategy, all right? You do want to spend a good time with your LinkedIn profile, and the content, as I mentioned previously, has no errors in it, no typos, no misspellings, no grammatical errors. Then what you also want to do is build your LinkedIn network. Ask people to link with you, all right? And as you may know, this isn't like friending people on Facebook. This is professional. So you should be trying to link with your professors, with fellow students, with people that you met at internships or jobs, with your previous supervisors in internships or jobs. All those kinds of people you should be trying to link with to build your LinkedIn network, okay? That will help you ultimately in terms of using LinkedIn as a job search tool, especially. Oh, one other thing. This is a private Twitter account that I maintain for SPA students, but students who are not SPA can get in, okay? It's a private account, which means when you go to that address that's way over on the left side, it's at @AU_SPA careers. When you go to that address and you're logged into LinkedIn, it will say tweets are protected, click follow to request access. That will send me a message on Twitter that you have requested access. Now, if your Twitter identification is not your name, it's something that you made up, you need to send me an email to tell me that you've asked for access, okay? And also I've had students from, say, Arabic speaking countries or China whose Twitter account identifies them in, say, Mandarin script. I can't read it. So I have no idea who you are, and I won't let you in if I have no idea who you are. Why is this a private account? Because I keep out everyone who is not an AU student or a recent alumni, okay? There are a lot of students at Georgetown and George Washington University and the University of Maryland and other schools around the country who want access to this account because it's probably the only one of its kind in the entire US. I tweet 100 internships a month and 300 jobs a month on average, okay? That means I tweet 5 days a week and it's about 15 to 18 tweets a day, Monday through Friday, okay? There's a lot of content there. Now you still have the same issues of, you know, the H-1B visa and working on OPT or not OPT or CPT and all of that. But there's a lot of potential opportunity here, okay? And so if you want access to that, log into Twitter, click follow when you're at AU_SBA careers. And assuming I can recognize you and see that you are an AU student, because when I see a name, I check it in the AU registrar's database. And if you're not in the database, you don't get in. And if I can't check your name, you don't get in unless you've emailed me to say, hey, I'm an AU student and I was at your webinar. Let me type, oh no, I'm typing in my email address. So there it is in the chat. If you're in the room, I don't know whether you can see that in the chat in the room. It's robert.sangeorge@american.edu. That's my email. If you need to email me to tell me that, you know, I've asked for access to your account and this is my Twitter handle, which might not resemble your name, okay? So that's that in terms of if you're interested in the SBA, my SBA Twitter account. There are other AU resources on Twitter besides my, you know, there's my SBA account. There are open accounts for SIS careers, SOC careers, CAS careers, COGAD biz careers, and the main AU Career Center has its own account separate from mine and other career accounts. And those are all, but those other, what is it, 5, are open. You don't need to ask, you won't need permission to get in. But they don't do what I do, which is tweeting 400 jobs and internships a month, okay? That's why a lot of people want to get in who don't attend American University. And if you're unfamiliar with the Career Center, resources for international students, it's american.edu/career-center/international-students.cfm. Emily can probably repeat that for you if you're in the room there, and those of you who are online can see that address. Well, actually, all of you can see the address. Check Handshake for relevant career-related events and webinars. You go to Handshake, and on the left side of the homepage of Handshake, there's a navigation area, and you click on events or you click on fairs like the AU Job Fair, for example. And you can make individual advising appointments with whatever school you are attending via Handshake. Yeah, or you can call the AU Career Center. And there is an address for information on H-1B visas. You probably already know about this, myvisajobs.com. There's a lot of, I just checked it yesterday. There's a lot of pretty good information there that you may find helpful to you in terms of employers that are doing visas the top 100 US employers who are offering H-1B visas and things like that. Okay, so I think that is the last slide. That is the last slide. So I'm going to go back to this slide. Are there any other questions? Because I am finished. It's been about an hour almost. I don't see any hands raised in the
Nothing in the room, no.
Okay, and I don't see anything online. So listen, good luck. By the way, if you are an SPA undergrad, unless you're a senior, you can't make an appointment with me. You have to make it with a different advisor, and you can just call the Career Center front desk for that information. And again, if you're with SIS, you go to their Career Center, and COGAD goes to their Career Center, and then all the other AU schools go through the main AU Career Center. Okay, so that's it, and I'm going to sign off now. Thank you very much, and good luck.
Thanks, Rob. See you later.
Bye.